Hey everyone, welcome to Cove Shorts. My name is Keith Youngs, Principal Sales Engineer for Cove Data Protection. Today I am hanging out with, I don't know, I find this person one of the most incredible and interesting people in our organization. He's our head nerd for security, Lewis Pope. Lewis, we're going to chat about Cove. We're going to chat about crypto. We're going to chat about security, and we're going to connect these three things together today. But what I really want to get to is that we've been cryptoed. Now what? We got to recover. I got some steps in mind. I know you do too, and I'm curious about yours. Lewis, take me through a little bit of that moment or those moments when we've been cryptoed or ransomware and we need to make that recovery. What are some of the first things that come to mind when you're hearing that statement?
Well, for me, first thing I always ask is, have you done your assessment first? Do you know the lay of the land? Do you understand what actually happened? Because if you jump the gun straight to recovery, then there's no guarantee you're not going to find yourself right back into the same boat because you restored back into your production environment the exact same problem.
So, Lewis, I'm going to just interrupt you there because something came to mind as soon as you said that, because we have a lot of solutions today that have this sort of push button recovery somewhere locally or somewhere off site. And when something goes down, it's almost knee jerk to just hit the button and fire that server up and do that recovery. I'm being a little facetious with that, but it's almost that's how the stories go. That doesn't apply here, does
Right.
it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't because those are, even though they are considered to be backup solutions and they get talked about in the backup conversation a lot, I tend those are more failover solutions for me.
Right.
Um, and even when you push that magic button to get them back into production, they're usually saying, "Okay, I'm going to go back to my last good snapshot or my last good image I have. Push that back up." But the problem is, if you didn't do your due diligence before that, you're still stuck pushing back out the same cryptoed. Either you're pushing back out the same cryptoed files
Yep.
because you didn't go back far enough to make sure that that was a good data set, or you end up pushing back out into production the initial compromise, what got you in the situation you're currently in, whether that's um, especially when it comes to servers. They may have persistence on a server for weeks.
Yeah.
You have to take the time, start looking at things and figuring out at what point did this initial compromise occur, and then let that be the all right, we're going to go to a previous state before that, restore from there. And sometimes you'll even say that, well, we're going to do our system restores, so our full system restores from that point,
Yep.
and then we'll grab individual file and folders or individual data for more from more recent data sets. So you're not you've restored yourself from two desperate sets of data,
Right.
and sometimes it is the trouble you have to go through.
Yeah, it's sort of sort of the classic archetype of the warrior in a ransomware attack where they move laterally and it's almost like a Trojan horse in the purest sense where it just starts to spread itself throughout your entire hard drive. And you got to really pinpoint that point in time when it actually arrived, not when it made itself known.
Yeah, and this is where I don't often advise this because it is a deep, giant rabbit hole that I don't honestly expect anybody to dive down. Is know and understand the tactics, techniques, and processes that are being used by ransomware groups, by threat actors.
Right.
Go see what variant of ransomware were you hit with. Do you see any other indicators that let you know that it was Clop, it was Ryuk, it was whoever it may have been? How do they operate? Because that'll give you some immediate things to go check on. Oh, this particular variant of ransomware works via TrickBot, or this particular variant of ransomware works via exposed RDP protocols. So you that can lead you. No, that's getting into the incident response side, and again, rabbit hole. But
Sure.
that's what lets you know. Okay, I need to go look at all of these perimeter items. I need to look at all these ingress points to make sure that again, I'm not restoring good data, but I've still left open the window so they can just come right back in again.
So yeah, another thing comes to mind where we want to understand the variant, so we kind of know how it existed or how it exists, and how to remediate it. And then you want to get back in a space where, at the point in time, like I said again, not when it exposed itself, but when it arrived. That's crucial,
Right.
isn't it?
It is, and the only way you're going to find that out is to do an honest postmortem. You're going to have to look at the situation. Well, not even a postmortem because it's in the event, but you've got to look at it. You got to figure out when it started. What are the other possible avenues? What were the weaknesses that were exploited? So you can close those
Right.
gaps in your defenses, get back to your good data set. And we keep saying getting back to a good data set. And depending on what kind of backup solution you're using, those are two different processes. If
Right.
you are using a local backup solution where you have your backups created and they're flat, they're images, they're unencrypted images, they're flat, they're available. A a particularly nasty APT group can go in and modify those. They
Correct.
can exfiltrate data from them, and that's usually what they do. They use those as a great way to quickly and easily exfiltrate entire data sets. But they may also modify and booby trap those or compromise them in some way.
Right.
So you have to also add that into your responses that you are also going to verify the integrity of the data that's in the backup before you restore it. So it's not just we know that the environment was compromised at this date. It's that we've looked at our backup data and we have verified that it itself was not modified or compromised during this event. Sometimes that's just deleting the data wholesale
Yep.
because, well, they were in the local environment, they gained access, they were able to destroy it. They could have modified, dropped additional payloads inside of it, whatever it may be. And that's an additional step that you've got to go through.
So
One
some of
of the
the other.
things
Oh, sorry, Lewis. Go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say, one of the things I like about Cove, though,
Yeah.
is that you don't have to go through that step. Once we commit a backup, once it goes to the cloud, it is there, it is not modifiable. There's no write or modify actions available to the data that's already been backed up. So you don't have to go through that process.
It's very important, and as you're saying this right now, I'm starting to think about it because we started off this discussion with the idea of instant recovery, and that actually could be a costly mistake, right, in this event.
It can be, yes.
Yeah, and so as we're sort of sharing some of the, we've really got to step back, be cool, take your time. Let's not rush this one, because we don't want to show negligence as a service provider, as the managed service groups that are servicing these customers obviously don't want to be negligent for them. They don't want to be liable for creating a scenario that is going to further increase the loss. We need to follow regulations. If there's contractual obligations, um, things like that. Are we missing anything? I mean, cyber insurance. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of steps that our cyber insurance provider will
Oh
want to
yeah, that adds an
take.
entirely different layer into that because if you get into a scenario, you get the phone call you do not want to get, ransomware attack at a client. You go to that client. You should already know if they're your client that they have insurance. They have cyber liability
For
insurance
sure.
coverage. You should already know who their incident response companies are that they're going to want you to contact. And you should already be familiar with what that incident response company is going to ask you to do. Because if the expectation from your client is that their insurance is going to pay for all of this and they're not going to have to spend any money, that means you've got to get the insurance company involved at the outset. You can't do work. You can't do recovery. You can't embetter the environment before you contact the insurer, get the claim rolling, and get the incident response team in. That
So
is antithetical to what most knee-jerk reactions are going to be for a lot of MSPs. It's like, no, go in, get it fixed, get them back on the road. But that's part of that initial assessment you have to make. Is this something that we can simply restore from backups, and that's all we have to do?
right.
But you then have to also say, but what about extortion? Was data exfiltrated? Is
Yeah.
this a client that processes sensitive information, PII, credit cards, something that's going to make them liable, something that's going to require them to have to report to their Secretary of State or to whoever they may be, uh, rules and regulations and laws require them to report.
Right.
I don't want to say it complicates it, but it adds additional decisions to the process. And you do not want to be in the middle of that scenario trying to make those decisions. Those decisions should have already been made. They should already be in your playbooks, and they should already be in your incident response manuals.
And likely so. I mean, let's just assume for the moment the majority of our conscious managed service providers have some sort of plan. They have articulated their desire to cleanly get out of this scenario. What I have overheard in some conversations is some are applying the same methodology of quick, fast recovery and including that in the crypto recovery decision and conversation. And part of me wants to agree. I want to get you back up and running as quickly as possible,
Right.
but I also want to think about these steps we're talking about, which make it impossible to be that fast. Those missteps are going to cost money, and if we're not doing things correctly, where can we go? What would your suggestion be if somebody said to you today, "Hey, I've got Cove data protection. I've just been cryptoed. It got past all of my security tools. Um, I want to be reassured by those around me that they have some good advice." Is that do we have anything that we can talk about? Sort of incident response guidance. Like where do we go for that information?
Well, there are tons. If you NIST, DHS, CIS, all of these, if you recognize those acronyms, go out. They've got resources for it. On incident response handling and things like that, best practices.
Right.
But it is a borrowing from another skill set. This is a situation of measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
And the measuring twice, though, in this case, you're not doing it right during the event. This measuring should have done before. But whenever you do have that scenario and you do want to recover clean, well, it got through all your AVs, but did it get a hit from one of your endpoint solutions or security solutions?
Right.
Well, if it gave you a hit somewhere that made you aware that the ransomware was happening, but it didn't stop it, well, at least you have a starting point. You know that that's probably where it precipitated from. Let me go investigate that. When did that happen? How do I reasonably assume that the attacker was able to do that? Look at your event logs, look at your firewall logs, whatever you have available to you, and that's the your reaction. How you respond is going to be very dependent upon your skill set here. What your previous experience is, because if I give you a list that says go check these 5 logs and you don't have any experience with parsing those logs, that advice is no good for you.
You mentioned
But it
something.
is that do your best to find when it started. That's what
Yeah.
you should be looking for first.
The infection point, and one of the things you mentioned in sort of complicates matters is the local copy of data. A lot of we talk about the threat landscape and the attack surface, and we find that the local box has become quite a target in conversations where they can get to that local backup appliance and start moving laterally. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And so, think about a solution like Cove Data Protection that, has a local copy recommendation, but a direct to cloud solution. When you're hearing Cove in that cyber resilience conversation, how are you feeling as one of our security experts here at Enable? Is that certainly that's a confidence statement for that our partners should be listening to, should they not?
It is because one of the nice things about the way that the local speed vault, that local copy we allow you to keep, one of the nice
Mhm.
things about the way it works is it's validating itself against the cloud data set.
Correct.
So if they do not match, it invalidates the local speed vault, rebuilds it for you automatically. That's not something you have to sit there, monitor, manage, and kind of stay on top of. The
Right.
platform does it for you. And that'll give you the confidence to know that, hey, I don't have to worry about the data set that was backed up after it was backed up being tampered with. That is an entire set of concerns and worries that you don't even have to contend with Cove. Versus if you were using a backup solution where it was creating, whole images and then doing differentials for files.
Yeah.
And storing those flats somewhere. Well, then now you have those were flat files that were readable from the network, addressable from the network, uh, editable from the network. Okay, do I have a monitoring solution in place that would have let me know that those files were manipulated after they was first written? Do I need to look at whenever it said that backup was created and then go look at modified times? It's additional work that has to be done to verify that this data was not tampered with after it was backed up.
That's a good
Cove
point.
just completely eliminates that worry for you.
So there we have it, folks. Cove eliminates that worry for you. Lewis, we're up against the wall for time today, and I really wanted to get a lot out, and I think we accomplished that. I think the genesis of this is if we were to give any wise words of wisdom as we depart, I would say that something of the effect of slow down when it's a ransom or a crypto virus attack. Take your time. If you don't have some steps, consider some steps and recovery. What do we say, Lewis? What's something that you might suggest on the way out?
Uh, Act with urgency, not panic.
Ah, perfect. I feel composed enough already to fight another day, Lewis. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. My name again, Keith Young with Cove Data Protection. My good friend Lewis Pope, head nerd of security for Enable. Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing weekend and an amazing afternoon. Bye for now.